In this video, we are returning to a topic that we have looked into on several occasions before, and that is the use of stack cutting. Now this follows on from some comments that were put on different videos that we have made, and it's focusing on that question of whether or not it is quicker for us to stack cut or cut one layer out at a time. Now I already went into this having my own thoughts on what I felt would be quicker, but I thought it would be interesting to do a time trial to see once and for all what is quicker, one layer, two layers, 3 or 4. So the first part of the process was to mark our designs out on the wood itself. We are using a Christmas tree design, and to make this as consistent as possible, what I decided to do was to cut all of these out in the same piece of woods and the same thickness, because of course these are all little factors that will have an influence on the time it takes to make each project. So that was the first part of the process, was to prepare all the wood for doing this. Stack cutting is a method that we use a lot, and the way we do it, we use CA glue to stick different layers of wood together. So that's the next part of the process, is to prepare the layers for cutting out. As you can see, we've got 1 layer, 2 layers, 3 layers and 4 layers, and we're going to look into which proves to be the most efficient from a productivity point of view. Part of the process is to drill the holes. We drill the hole for our 1 layer, 2 layers, 3 layers and 4 layers. After this, we use our tried and tested method of sanding the back of the wood nice and flat. We put a brand new blade in our scroll saw to make sure it's cutting as well as possible, and we proceed on to cutting out our first layer. So I'm using a timer, which you will have just seen disappearing off from screen, and after cutting out our first Christmas tree, total time spent working on it was 7 minutes. On to our 2 layers, and I was slightly surprised at how close it was when it came to the amount of time we spent. So that came in around about 8 minutes. So it only took us a minute longer to cut out twice as many Christmas trees. When it came to 3 layers, it was only 40 seconds longer and 1 minute and 40 seconds longer than cutting out 1 layer. Now, when we got on to 4 layers, this was also an interesting result because the drop-off was quite significant. So the drop-off between 3 and 4 layers was quite dramatic, going up above 12 minutes to cut out the 4 layers. So these results then proved really interesting. The difference between cutting out 1 layer and 3 layers is less than 2 minutes, highlighting just how much more productive we can be by using stack cutting. So that is why it is our preferred method of producing here at our family workshop. It is worth noting though, when you get beyond a certain point, so in this example, when we got to 4 layers, the process of cutting out is significantly affected, and it slows down in terms of the amount of time it takes us to cut out the individual item. So the conclusions that we drew from doing this is for ourselves as a family workshop to survive and to compete with methods of mass production. Stack cutting is a really important part of what we do. It allows us to be more productive, more efficient, and ultimately this will allow us to produce more and to keep our prices as reasonable as we possibly can. One little note it is worth bearing in mind, and that is the fact that if you use thinner pieces of wood, you can stack more layers. It's not the number of layers that you stack that affects that drop off in the time it takes us to cut. It is the thickness of the wood itself, and also the type of wood can have an effect too. In this example that we demonstrated, I was cutting slightly thicker wood, so it takes a little bit longer to cut it all out. We also use methods like using packing tape, a method that was suggested by you, the viewers, and that helps us as well because it lubricates the blade as you're cutting out. Let us know in the comments section your preferred choice. Do you prefer to stack cut or cut out 1 layer at a time, or does it depend on what you are making. Our preferred choice is where possible we will use stack cutting, but again, if it's a thicker piece of wood, sometimes we have to cut out one at a time. Thank you all again for watching, and as always, we'll be back again soon with more videos.